the message today, and I wanted us, if we could, I'm going to be talking about out of 1 Corinthians chapter 11, 1 through 2. And I want to start out by telling you a story in my life of following somebody. And how many of you ever had an idol or somebody in your life that you looked up to? Anybody? Yeah, amen. How many know it's important to have somebody that you're looking up to and you're trying to follow? And sometimes we follow somebody, and I used to stay up all night, and I would listen to him, and I would hear what he said, and I would read his books. I followed his messages, and he's a wonderful, wonderful man, and I really appreciate him. But he started to do some things in his life that I couldn't follow because, he was divorced like 3 times. So it was very difficult for me to follow him as far as my family, my relationships, because it was affecting my relationship with my wife. Now, how many know that when you follow somebody or you look up to somebody, you have to be careful that what they're doing, that they're following Christ. Now, it doesn't mean that they don't have weaknesses and they don't have problems, because how many know that every man and every woman has problems? They have problems, serious problems. And, I grew up in the church, and I grew up among a lot of different ministers and preachers, and I know some very, some big people, big as far as well known. But, as I began to take a look and follow and look at their lives and follow their examples, there was some things I just couldn't follow. Because I couldn't do that. I couldn't get away with that. Because it would destroy my life. It would destroy my family. It would destroy my children. And it would destroy my relationships. So that's what today I want to talk to you a little bit about. It's about, in 1 Corinthians chapter 11, Jesus said, or Paul said, to the Corinthians, he said, "Be ye followers of me, even as I also am of Christ. Now I praise you, brethren, that you remember me in all things, and keep the ordinances as I deliver them to you." He said to them, to the Corinthians, he said, "Be ye followers." Now the word followers there means to mimic. To mimic. So I'd like for somebody to come today, and I'd like for you to do, and I want you to mimic me. I'm going to show you some things, and I want you to do it. Come on, Jonathan, you can mimic me, okay? You can act. I want you to do whatever I do, okay? Now remember, Jonathan is following me. Now, if somebody's following you, that means that they're not. That means you're in front, and that means they're in the back, right? If they're following you, the word follow there means to mimic. If you look it up, it means to do just like they do. Okay? And so then you have to just, if they raise their hand. How many ever played Simon Says? Simon Says. Raise your hands. See, now you're following. You're following me. Jonathan's following me. John's doing whatever I'm doing. And the Lord said.
And the Lord said.
Yes, thank you. And the Lord said.
And the Lord said.
Do this.
Do this.
And you will be blessed.
And you will be blessed.
Amen.
Amen.
Amen. Now. Oh my God. Can you believe what he did? You're fired. Now see, Jonathan was following me.
Yep.
Jonathan was doing what I was doing. But then I did something that was not right. And Jonathan, he did what I did. Can you believe that? Now Jonathan's the kind of guy I want to have following me. Thank you, Jonathan. So that's the key. See, I could follow, he could follow me, but when I did something, now here's what happens. I know that sometimes when you do something that you're not supposed to do, some things in your life are automatic. They're automatic. Let's say automatic. There's some things that you're doing in your life right now is because you saw somebody else doing it. There are some things and some habits and some patterns in your life that you picked up. That's why sometimes we wonder why the children are doing what they're doing. But the reason why, a lot of times, is because they're watching somebody else do what they do. And they're learning. For example, I learned how to eat a bowl of cereal every night. Cheerios with milk and honey. Every night about 10:30 at night. It was instinct. It was a habit in my life. You know where I learned that from? My father. Because every night he had his Cheerios with honey and a big bowl. So I would sit down on that chair and I watched him, and man, I did the same thing. Then I picked up another habit of eating Ben and Jerry's ice cream. Chunky Monkey. Have you ever had Chunky Monkey? Chunky Monkey is good ice cream. And I learned that from my Uncle Joe, because I go visit my Uncle Joe, and he said, come here, Justin, we're going to go out to the store. We go to the store, we go get Chunky Monkey, we sit down in front of the TV, and we watch a Western, John Wayne, and we would eat Chunky and Monkey. Chunky Monkey. And I learned that from him. You see, I learned that because he was my uncle, and I learned from him. I was following him, and I learned. And I found out there's a lot of things that in my life I've learned from following or watching other people, mimicking them. That's why there's some things in your life that you see people do that you cannot do them. Because if you saw that, for example, there were some things that I saw my father do that I knew. Now, he's a wonderful, wonderful man. Don't get me wrong. But my father had some things that he did not do well. And he had a really bad temper. And so what happened to me is I was watching my father, I was following my father, and I noticed that I started to pick up some of his habits, and one of them was he had a bad temper. So I started to see in my life that when I would get angry, I would act like him. And I could not stand it when my father would get angry. Because, now, I'm not trying to talk about it. I want you to understand I'm using him as an example. And myself as an example. But I had to learn, because when my children started to do things that I couldn't control, or things that I was upset about, I had to watch it because I would lose my temper. And I saw the way I acted when they did certain things, and I actually surprised myself because of the way I acted. Now, am I responsible for my behavior? Absolutely. Can I blame my father for what I did, for my actions? How many know that we can't blame other people for what we do? How many know that? If you do, raise your hand. We can't blame them, but we have to understand that we are influenced by them. What they do has an effect on our lives. And the example that they set for us has an example on our behavior, because we pick up from them certain things that sometimes we don't even realize that we're picking up from them. That's why it's important to understand that when we, like Jesus said, I talked about this a little bit last week about the family of God, is that when you come to know Jesus Christ as your Savior and as your Lord, how many here have given your life to Jesus as your Savior and your Lord? If you've given your life to Jesus, would you raise your hand? Would you please raise your hand? I want to encourage you, that's the most important thing you could ever do in your life, is to give your life to Jesus and make Jesus your Savior and your Lord. Because what happens when you give your life to Jesus, and I want you to really hear this is so simple, but it's so profound, is that when you give your life to Jesus Christ, you are no longer a man, that old person anymore. In other words, the old man has passed away, and all things have become new, and you become a new creation. Let's say a new creation. A new creation, that word actually means that you literally become like a new species of being. You become like God and you become like man. Now you have the ability to do and act just like God. Be just like God. Amen. Heal, touch, bless people, do good. Amen. Bless and help people. Because now you are no longer that old person anymore. But now you are a new creation. So what happened to me when I realized that when I gave my life to Jesus and I was born again, that those things that I battled with, that I received from my Father, that I picked up because of the behavior that I was watching every day. Because how many know when you live with somebody every day and you watch them, you pick up on their behaviors? Amen. How many know when you hang around somebody that swears a lot, guess what happens? You start swearing. Yeah. Amen. When you hang around with somebody that eats a lot of ice cream, guess what happens? You start eating a lot of ice cream. When you hang around somebody that watches and does bad things, guess what happens? If you hang around them, pretty soon you're going to start doing bad things. That's why we have to watch who we hang around with. We have to watch who we spend time with, because when we spend time with them all the time, we pick up on their behaviors. And we don't even realize it sometimes. Sometimes we just don't know where we got that from. A lot of times it's because you're hanging around with somebody, or you're watching somebody, or you're using them as an example. They're speaking into your life, but the things that they're speaking into your life are not good. And you, as a person, as a child, do not have to receive those things into your life. You have power and authority over your life. When you give your life to Jesus Christ, you have the ability, if you see somebody doing something wrong, you have the ability to not do that. You have the ability to say, I respect them, I love them, but I'm not going to do what they just did. Just like Jonathan, when he followed me and all of a sudden I went to slap Mary, Jonathan has the ability to not do that. He doesn't have to do that. You see, you don't have to do certain things, no matter how old or how young you are. There's certain behaviors that you do not have to do. And when you see that you're doing something wrong, you have the ability to stop. Amen. Tell somebody next to you, say, I'm not a victim.
I'm not a victim.
Amen. Say, I'm a follower of Christ. That's why Paul said, he said, follow me. So that means that there are people that you're supposed to mimic. There are people that you are supposed to mimic. The word follow means to mimic, to do what they do. How many know if you do what some people do, you will learn, you will grow, and you will excel in life? Amen. You see, a lot of times, we do not like to follow people because we have been made to be leaders, not followers. We don't like to be told what to do because we were made in the image of God and we were made to be boss. Tell somebody next to you, say, I'm a boss. Say, I'm a leader. Say, I'm a leader. But how many know in order to be a good leader, in order to be a good boss, you got to be a good follower. You got to be willing to watch and learn, because if you don't watch and learn what people do, good or bad, you will end up doing the very same thing. And I know you don't have to do that. You don't have to do what they do that's bad, but you can learn from what they do that's good and mimic it and follow it and save yourself a lot of heartache, a lot of pain. You know what I found out? The older I got, the more smarter I saw my parents were. I thought my parents, when I was younger, I thought my parents were stupid. I look at them when they were about 40 years old and I go, man, my parents are so old. You know, they'd sit there, my dad sit there in his rocking chair. I'd be like, man, he is so old.